And we are underway for the first time in Assen. It's only a short, sharp burst down to the opening corner, but it looks as though Adrian has got the job done. He will take the whole shot with Tras settling into second, and that's Vindex that goes down. What a shame for the RNF Yamaha man. I was just about to say he'd made a great start after a brilliant qualifying, but it's all ended in despair for the Italian. Crashes out and drops to the back of the field.
Yeah, massive shame then for Vindex. He was sweeping around the outside at turn 1, and as we do know, if you're on the outside, you are going to be at exposure to any sort of chaos going on. Looks as though Spadalongo's also had a crash, so that's 3 that have already crashed on the first lap. But as we go then, it's actually holding stations from the grid for once in MotoGP eSport. Adrian Trastevere and Andrea Severelli, it's all of those 3 at the front, just as they were on the grid.
Tatigo has got himself a long lap penalty. I would imagine maybe he has had a role to play in one of the 3 crashes we saw in that opening quarter of the lap here. Vindex went down of his own accord, but then we didn't see in the background both Spadalongo and Mr. T crashed out, so I wonder if Tatigo's long lap penalty is for having some sort of a hand in those incidents. He's got 3 laps to take that. At the front though, no such issues for Adrian at the moment. He leads the way, 2 tenths clear of Trast.
So here we go then, clicking gears all the way through one of the most brilliant sections of racetrack you will find anywhere in the world. Coming down now into the Goetzinger chicane for the first time to round out lap 1. Adrian has company in the form of Trastevere, although it looks as though he's absolutely nailed the chicane there. Opened up a superb gap. Looks as though it's going to be about 4 tenths across the line for lap 1.
Brilliant drive out the Goetzinger chicane for the first time from Adrian there. Just look at the way he punched clear of everyone behind him. Brilliant stuff from the Repsol Honda man. If he can line it up and get it onto the fat part of the tyre as good as he did there on the next 9 times around through the Goetzinger chicane, then I don't think anyone is going to stand a chance of getting him into the opening corner. But here comes Tras, starting to close back in through the slowest part of the circuit there of Struben, and now into one of the fastest parts, Ruskenhoek, the right-hander, and then they'll flick left before then heading down towards Steckenwald. This is what we mean by you have to be so precise at Assen. Just look how narrow it is here, especially as we head through now into this fastest part of the circuit. On the run down towards the bolts, the 90-degree left-hander, a good overtaking opportunity here if you can get a good run. And then now into the 2 rights of Manderveen and Duikersloot. Here's the first one. You'll flick it right, just let it run wide as you can without going on to track limits. A mistake there from Ricciuti, giving an opportunity for Jackhammer to close in, but no way through. And let's stay on board here with Jackhammer, because this is what Assen is all about. They flick right, they flick left through Hogerheide, now into Ramshoek, the super fast 4th gear left-hander, and then hard onto the brakes into the Goetzinger chicane. That is signature Assen, iconic Assen. It's great to see it finally taking top billing on the MotoGP eSport calendar. Yeah, one of the best tracks in the world. Looks like Mr. T, we've had a little bit of technical issues there with his internet. He has left this race then, but Jackhammer once again putting pressure on those ahead of him. He hasn't had the best starts because he hasn't had the best qualifying in the world, but as we see in the race, as soon as it comes race time, ooh, that was going to be close. I thought he was going to sneak up the inside of Piero Ricciuti there, but no, maybe he'll do it coming out of Strubben now as we fire down through the Weinschlang then. This is clicking gears all the way, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and up to 6th. They'll throw it in the right. This is one of the bravest corners there is. Look at that all the way through there. That is quite something. And it looks as though Jackhammer, I tell you what, he might just be setting this up for a cheeky move if he can get the drive out here, cut it tight on the apex. Does that lovely. Has he got the drive now? It may well have. The KTM man, does he outbrake the Ducati? No, he doesn't. Just hold station for now. But he's swarming over the rear wheel, right and then left. He's desperate to find a way through on Ricciuti, but so far the defence from the Bologna Bullet is quite superb at the moment. He'd find himself quite happily settling into an Italian back 3 alongside Bonucci and Chiellini with defending like this. Great stuff from Ricciuti. So once again then, we're seeing that at the minute, it's just Adrian and Trastevere with that pace that no one else seems to be able to live with at the moment. Andrea Severi, that gap has opened up a tiny little bit on this lap. A 10.42 here, but that is all you need in MotoGP eSport to be comfortable. And speaking of a 10.42, that is far less than a 10.42. Does he get in this time down into turn 1? No, he does not. So Jackhammer, once again, his efforts thwarted by Piero Ricciuti. He's really trying here, is Jackhammer. He's going to have another look, surely, as we head towards Struben. Can he try and line it up up here, take an outside line through Ossabrücken before the dive back. No, he can't. Good defensive work once again from Ricciuti, holding off the Brit in that fight for a place inside the top 5. At the front, though, so far, so good. Plain sailing for Adrian.
Oh,
he's
here we
6
go.
tenths clear. Here's the move then. Oh, he's on the grass on the inside. What a brave place to barge your way through that is. He was pushed wide, was Ricciuti, after the move from Jackhammer. Both of them, I think, are well over track limits. Jackhammer tasting a little bit of the grass on the inside. They do sometimes host MXGP rounds here at Assen, and he's decided to go grass tracking, dirt tracking himself was Jackhammer. He's on the right machinery for doing that, isn't he, on the KTM? Good stuff. But Ricciuti managed to find a way back through. Both of them handed a track limits warning as a result of that. I'm sure there'll be a word in the ear coming as well if they continue to sort of stretch the limits of the track like that in the future.
Through Rushden Hook then, not going to be close enough this time down into the Geertzimer chicane, but it does look as though Jackhammer, that impatience is certainly starting to bubble over. Definitely gone over track limits again there, and he has just received the track limits warning as well. Oh, look at that. Track limits warning then for Trast in second place. He's actually dropped now to 9 tenths behind Adrian, so it looks as though Adrian on the Honda is just a bit too strong here in race 2 at Assen.
Yeah, we're only 5 laps into this 10-lap event, halfway through. But already, Adrian looks as though he's got this one in the bag. Of course, there's a long way to go. Anything could and probably will happen, actually, as we've become accustomed to in MotoGP eSport. But so far, Adrian really unflappable as he looks to get himself up onto the top step of the podium for the second time this year. Here is Christian. You can see he's got a little bit of company in the background there. I imagine that is the third Montenegro brother. Of course, Christian and Adrian, the men first and fourth in this one, are brothers. If you can...
Looks as though it's just the official fan club, Jack.
It is. It's the Montenegro fan club in the background there. He's nervous as well because he's biting his fingernails. As we all are. He's on edge watching brother Christian fight it out here, and you can tell why, because this fight for third place is hotting up. In fact, you would say the fight for second place is hotting up because Trastevere is falling into the clutches here of both Severi and Christian as we head towards the Geertzimer chicane, hard onto the brakes, and we look forwards. Yeah, look at that. Trastevere is definitely just falling into the clutches of these two. We could have ourselves a bit of a ding-dong for second place, and if Trast does start to drop a little bit further backwards, well, that will certainly tighten it up at the top of the championship. I
was just about to say there, it looked as though Christian MM17 did go across track limits coming through the Geertzimer chicane, and he definitely did, because our race direction were quick on it. The hawky, beady eyes, they saw him very, very quickly indeed. Look at the gap at the front here now. 1.1, almost 1.2 seconds. This is an absolute demolition job from Adrian. Did not expect him to pull away like this. Trastevere is usually one of the quickest in race trim, and Adrian has just made him look a bit silly here in this one. Quite incredible, really. But Adrian and Trastevere, as we do say, if these two finish 1 and 2 like this, it's certainly not going to be too much of a bother which way round they are, because it's just good for their championship here, particularly with it only being half points. If you lose out some points to the man ahead of you, it's not as bad as on a regular weekend.
You could see from the helicopter shot there just a few moments ago the size of Adrian's advantage, and to put that into a little bit of context as well, of the opening 3 races we've had so far, race 1 and race 2 were split by just 1/4 of a second. That was the race winning margin, and then once again it was just over half a second, I believe, over the line, but it was pretty close given the fact that Adrian made a mistake which allowed Trast to have that advantage. We've not had domination like this at all so far in 2022. This is a statement of intent so far coming from Adrian.
Now, we've come across the line there. We're on to lap 7, 4 laps to go here, and there's certainly already a little bit of tyre wear, as you can see there, is on board with Trastevere. The right-hand side of that Michelin rear slick certainly starting to suffer a little bit of torture at the hands of the Yamaha, and will that pay a very big fortune to the man behind him coming into the last couple of laps? But I tell you what, the man behind him has to worry about the man behind him, because Christian MM17, he was close before, but now he's even closer. He can smell his breath almost. He's that close. 1/4 of a second off then as we go through the Wienerschlag, one of the fastest sections of the track, all the way on the outside curb as they go in. just a slight sneaky line there on the inside. Obviously, these guys, they find every sneaky line possible to get around our race direction. Looks like Christian MS17 has got one of those just hidden up his sleeve as well.
We've been doing this long enough, but it still unnerves me looking at this front camera. You often feel like the bike, especially when you get to the fast parts of a track, is just going to burst through the screen the end through so much corner speed. Well, keep an eye on this one then. That's a third track limits warning for Trastevere. We've got 3 laps remaining, another 2, and he'll have himself a long lap penalty. So Trast has to be super careful here. A long lap penalty normally costs you between 2 and 4 seconds. If he gets one of them, we could see him drop outside of the top 5, which would have huge implications for the championship. He has to be so careful now, Trast, and you can see why he's exceeding track limits as often as he is, because he's under all sorts of pressure from Severi.
Yeah, Andrea Severi, they're not happy. We're missing out on the podium in the first race here in race 2 of the Global Series. The long lap penalty, if indeed he does have to take it later in this race, is just here, turn 3, Ossenbrücken, and it is a long one. It really is. We've often seen them lose 3, 4, maybe even 5 seconds if they can't quite get it nailed going through. So certainly Trastevere, if he lost 4 seconds, where would that even put him? He'd be probably in 6th behind Jackhammer, and that would be disastrous for the championship margin that he has at the head at the moment. But Andrea Severi then certainly piling on the pressure. Less than 2 tenths the gap as they come down now into one of the fastest parts of the track, sweeping through here. It's typical Assen. It's so hard to make up that final little gap to the man in front of you because there is a limit here. It's one of those where you can't push it. Fast and flowing is the way around here. You can't be too aggressive.
2 laps remaining of the TT circuit Assen then. This is the E-Dutch TT. eSport heading to the Netherlands for the very first time, and so far it has been an astonishing ride from Adrian, our 2020 champion, putting down the biggest marker we've seen in the Global Series yet. 1.5 seconds clear of his closest championship rival, Trast, who we'll be able to see shortly is under mounting pressure from the Italian and the Spaniard. Severi on the Suzuki, Christian on the LCR bike, closing in on our 3-time champion, who's a little bit wide here. Is this an opportunity in the background for Severi? I don't think he's close enough, but that gap is under 2 tenths now. 2 laps remaining of Assen, and Trast is under siege here. He has to be careful not to throw away a podium finish, because you would have to say, if he makes one error, not only is he going to see Severi come through, but Christian is queuing up there as well.
Yeah, if the door gets opened, you know that Christian MM17 is going to be prepared to kick it off the hinges. That's how close he was. We even saw him creep into the back of the camera there when they were on board with Andrea Severi. There's the camera shot we want to see. The 2 hunters chasing the hunted for the 2nd position here. But as we know, Trastevere, he is a man that deals well with pressure. Oh, could this be a little move here from Christian MM17? Oh, that's a close one through Steckenval. That's incredibly close. Barging him out of the way. Looks as though Andrea Severi is going to be able to hold off for now. He does. Pushes him onto the curb. Get out of here. That's my line.
Great stuff. Both of them not wanting to give an inch to the other, and Severi in the end just about holding on. The front wheel, the side fairing was all rubbing up against him, trying to push him wide, but he was having none of it. And in fact, despite the pair of them coming to blows there, they've not lost that much touch with Trast in front for 2nd as we close in towards starting our final lap of Assen. Victory is surely going to go the way of Adrian. He's over 2 seconds clear now. Brilliance from the Repsol Honda man. Dominance as we've become accustomed to down the years by a Repsol Honda at Assen. Marc Marquez taking victory here on a number of occasions, but the fight for 2nd is the one we're going to be concentrating on. Trast, Severi, Christian, 3 men. They don't go into 2, never mind going into 1, because they're all fighting for 2nd place. Yeah, they certainly are. And Christian MM17 is certainly going to be extremely keen to stick one over on the 2 men in front of him. Christian, of course, is a veteran in the MotoGP eSport Global Series, but he's never quite reached this fame and stardom that the men ahead of him have. He's never won that championship, even though he's been every bit as fast as them at times. So he'd certainly be keen to sneak through to 2nd place here. But with only half a lap remaining, his time and options are running out. They certainly are. It looks as though he's just dropped a little bit back off the rear wheel of Severi here. That's a good punch forward from Trast, but Severi manages to close in on the brakes as he go through the bolts now towards Mandeveen and Duikersloot for the final time at the front. Already out of Duikersloot and on his way towards victories. Adrian, comfortable it has been for the Repsol Honda man. He's backed off here in the final lap to make sure sure that he can bring that Repsol Honda home. It will be victory number 2 of the season for him. But in that fight for second place, who's going to take it as we head towards the gate? Timmy Chicane for the final time. Through the penultimate corner, onto the brakes, into the gate, Timmy Chicane. Severi's not close enough. Christian's not close enough. It will be second for Trask, but today is all about Adrian. What a performance. The biggest winning margin of the year. The most dominant performance of the year. That's how you stake a claim for the MotoGP eSport title. Victory for Adrian ahead of Trask and Severi, who bounces back from disappointment at Le Mans, with Christian, the unfortunate man to miss out, in 4th. That fight that we saw earlier on between Rachuti and Jackhammer, in the end going the way of the Ducati man. And further down the field, we'll wrap up our points scoring finishes. It looks as though, definitely worth a mention, it was one of the rides of the season for Tatigo in 8th. It certainly was. Good stuff from the Grassini man. Just behind Davide Galigna, Vindex 9th, Dark Bright 10th, Spadalongo 11th, and an unfortunate DNF for our resident Aussie, Mr. TFTW. 1.3 seconds in the end, the advantage for Adrian, but it was much more simple for that. He was over 2.5 clear as we started the final lap before backing off, pulling a wheelie, making sure that he could celebrate with all of the fans virtually on site at the Netherlands. But look how close it was for that final podium spot. Trask a 1/4 of a second clear of Severi, who himself was 0.3 seconds ahead of Christian.